that's great. Thank you very much, Jeannie. Thank you for the very kind invitation. And it is a very great pleasure to be out here talking to you folks this evening because I bring you good news, first of all. Good news that affects you directly, the people of Maryland. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what is occurring in your own backyard in your state. And then I'm going to talk a little more broadly about what Judicial Watch does around the country and what our sort of national mission is. What was mentioned before is there's some literature over on the side table. We'll talk about that first of all. There's our newsletter, The Verdict, which I hope every single one of you gets in your mailbox every month. That talks about our work on an ongoing basis. Then there's some special reports that I think are real important for you to grab a hold of. In fact, grab 3 or 4 or 5 copies, annoy neighbors and relatives and give them extra copies. One is on the rebranding of Acorn. If any of you thought that Acorn as an organization went away, it didn't. We just changed names. We got a new letterhead, same staff, same address, in some cases even the same tax ID number. So absolutely nothing changed other than they went out to Kinko's or someplace and got a new set of letterhead. So now it's no longer New York Acorn, now it's New York Communities for Change, NYCC. They still run all of New York's housing. They still donate thousands and thousands of dollars to Occupy Wall Street and that crowd. So something to be aware of and to watch carefully, because just because the acronym and the name changes doesn't mean the activities don't change. There's also a special report on voter fraud, which I think all of us need to be aware of. In fact, we just launched a new initiative at CPAC on voter fraud. You would be surprised to know that in some states, like Mississippi, there's a county with 240% voter registrations over the actual population of the county. So keep voting and keep counting until you get the result that you want, right? And so we've launched a legal initiative to have states clean up their voter rolls, and that is already underway. And then lastly, there's also a special report on the Holder Justice Department and how politicized it's become, whether it has to do with Black Panther prosecution cases or voter fraud, or decisions like we want to try Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in Lower Manhattan, and simultaneously, whether you like it or not, it's still an interesting legal question, we'll order a drone strike on a U.S. citizen in Yemen. They can say the U.S. citizen in Yemen is a traitor and he should be in the drone strike. I'm not saying he shouldn't. But there's just an interesting sort of intellectual disconnect between wanting to grant a terrorist the rights of a U.S. citizen in Lower Manhattan and trying them in a criminal court. It's a very confused Justice Department that we currently have, and a very corrupt one. Arguably, Holder shouldn't even be the Attorney General. So, all right, now that's kind of touching on our national mission, but let me talk to you about what is going on right here in Maryland. Last week, well, first of all, let me just do a quick check. Everyone knows about the Maryland DREAM Act, correct? That's where you, but not you, but your legislature and governor have decided to grant in-state tuition rates to illegal aliens to go to college. So you're going to subsidize that at least $3 million a year, at least. Maryland petitions. Everyone know what Maryland petitions is?
Yeah.
Maryland petitions racked up about 130,000 signatures to have a referendum, which is your right as citizens of the Free State, to have a referendum on your ballot to overturn the actions of the legislature. And Maryland petitions racked up about 130,000 signatures. That's twice the required or necessary signatures to get the referendum on your ballot. At that point, various entities that advocate on behalf of and represent illegal aliens, folks like Casa de Maryland, La Raza, and the rest, decided that they would sue in Maryland State Court. And so, essentially, either illegal aliens and or their advocates don't want to allow citizens to vote in their election to decide what their laws are. That's the challenge. So persons unlawfully present get lawyers to file a lawsuit to stop the citizens of Maryland from being able to vote in their election about their laws, so whether you will use your tax money to subsidize persons unlawfully present to get in the state tuition.
Unbelievable.
So, it is unbelievable. It's obnoxious. It's offensive. So, we represent Maryland petitions. And I'm very happy to say that last week we won. And the referendum on the Maryland Dream Act will be on your ballot come November. Now here's the trick. This is where this is not, okay, we're done. Actually, this is just the first hurdle. There's two more things that are going to occur. One is your opponents, those persons with a vested interest in profiting off of and leveraging the presence of illegal aliens in Maryland, folks like Casa de Maryland, are already actively out polling, getting public opinion information, testing language to craft the language in the referendum to be as unoffensive and below the radar as possible. So John Q. Citizen, who's sitting on his couch eating Doritos watching NASCAR, who isn't showing up to meetings like this, reads the referendum and says, that sounds reasonable, sure, and says yes. Or in some way approves or endorses the Maryland Dream Act. Your opposition counts on a large number of people who are not politically active, who don't read the paper, watch the news, they just, well, this seems to make sense. And let me show you, or explain to you how insidious it is. The language that is being floated around by the opposition as a means to frame or craft the Maryland Dream Act is they're going to use veterans language. They're going to try to cloak the veil of, oh, this is a veterans benefit. We're trying to help military vets. Now, military veterans are not illegal aliens and not vice versa, right? But don't let language get in the way, right? We're gonna spin and manipulate, and so now here's where it gets more disturbing. Do you believe, do you feel that you're organized to counteract that effort right now? No, you're not. I can tell you you're not. One of the reasons why you're not, and one of the reasons why they are, is first of all, they're already doing that polling that I'm talking to you about. But Casa de Maryland, on their website, if you go there and take a peek, under a subheading or a sub-element of Casa de Maryland, which is called, you'll love this, Educating Maryland Kids, has advertised for a campaign fundraising manager. And their language, this is off their website, I put it at that. You can go to it right now if you want to and find it. Their campaign fundraising manager is going to be part of a $10 million fundraising campaign to defend the Maryland Dream Act, which is being challenged through a ballot referendum challenge in the November 2012 election. So, Casa de Maryland, under the banner of Educating Maryland Kids, who's against that, right? I can remember the Clintons used this very tricky little advertisement. We're fighting for the children. Whose side are you on? And how do you, right? They grab the language and they use it. So, Educating Maryland Kids, who's against that? Who wants dumb Maryland kids, right? Educating Maryland Kids is going to hire a campaign fundraising manager for a $10 million campaign to make sure you lose.
Who's funding it? They are.
Casa de Maryland is. And of course, one of Casa de Maryland's greatest contributors is Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, who gave Casa de Maryland $1.5 million.
Don't they get taxed on it?
Oh, the Maryland taxpayers are the biggest contributors.
They are, because Casa de Maryland is organized as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so they're not paying taxes either. Casa de Maryland, if you remember back in history, started out as a trailer down off of near Silver Spring with like a Tacoma Park with like a $100,000 budget, and now they're a multi-million-dollar operation with a huge building. So over time, you know, they've done very well for themselves. And of course, our current Civil Division Chief, Thomas Perez, in the U.S. Department of Justice, is a former Casa de Maryland board member. So in our very own Justice Department, we have Casa de Maryland advocates, let's say. So when I was talking to my colleague Paul Orphanides, who's our Director of Litigation at Judicial Watch this afternoon before coming up here, I said, so Paul, obviously I know the basic facts of the case. Is there anything special you want me to tell the good people of Howard County? He said, yeah, they better get organized, or you're going to get steamrolled. If you're sitting around thinking, la, 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 don't worry, there's a referendum, it'll be okay, you're wrong. You are wrong.
Will both sides be able to determine the wording? I mean,
The Secretary of State does the wordsmithing of the language. So the mechanisms, the gears, the procedures, and how that language is crafted is absolutely critical. We can provide additional advice and assistance on how best to make sure that that procedure is followed properly. But you know, the devil's in the detail, and this is those of you who know Antonio Gramsci, the Italian Marxist, right? Capture the culture, control the language. So if you control the language of how that referendum is written, or either they write it in such a way that there's like double negatives, your vote yes means that you don't not agree with. What does that mean? Right? So the language, how it's crafted, is critical. And that is an excellent point. Thank you.